This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, and these are your headlines. Armed gunmen who snatched a prisoner in broad daylight are up in court. A monk brutalizes and kills a little girl. And we go hunting for endangered species and capture a big bag full. But firstly, it's our headline story, and it is an update on a crime that was so big, so bold, and so brazen, it shocked the nation. Do you recall the story of how 12 armed gunmen stormed into a dentist's in Siem Reap to free a convicted Chinese drug smuggler? It was like something out of a movie. The drug smuggler had been taken to the dentist under guard to have some supposed dental work done. But it was all a ruse, as when he entered the dentist's surgery, all hell broke loose as armed gunmen stormed the building to free the drug dealer. And incredibly, it was all caught on film. Have a look at this.
And it is here that we can see the armed gunmen are restraining these prison guards. They have had their hands tightly bound behind their backs with the use of zip ties. They are then forced into the dentist's surgery. And it is inside that surgery that the convicted prisoner, the drug dealer, was supposedly having some dental work done. But it's at this very point he is released from his imprisonment.
Now, what you just saw was a crime as it actually took place, and that footage is very shocking due to its flagrant disregard of not only the general public safety, but of law itself, as taking officers of the law hostage can only be described as outrageous. Well, now, after many months, the men involved in this crime have now all appeared in court, and they face very lengthy prison sentences. 12 men, including 7 American citizens and 6 Cambodian American citizens, appeared in Phnom Penh Municipal Court this very week. Now, this crime is detailed, and it could take an entire new show all on its own. So, allow me to boil it down to the very basics for you. A convicted Chinese drug smuggler in prison complains of toothache, and somehow he gets not only the date of the dental appointment, but also the location of the dentist. This information is then spread to his cohorts on the outside. It was at 8 a.m. on the day of the appointment. The prisoner is transported and taken into the dentist's surgery. But not long after, 5 men burst through the doors with guns, shouting at the guards not to move. They handcuff the 4 guards, and then they grab the prisoner and make their getaway in a waiting Lexus. The snatch looked like a well-oiled crime at first, but it was not long before the whole thing fell apart very rapidly indeed. Now, let me ask you, what is it you do not want to leave behind at a crime scene? Well, I would suggest evidence. The less fingerprints, DNA, and other such things you leave behind, the better. So imagine the police's surprise when a couple of hours later, they discovered the getaway vehicle. And what they found in that vehicle was this. Yes, a literal Santa's grotto of evidence. Not only had they left behind guns, silencers, clothes, receipts, and other paperwork, they also left an oil tanker full of DNA. And at this point, one must question the professionalism of these criminals. With this bountiful harvest of evidence, it did not take the police long to start putting those clues together and to start making arrests. It was obvious to many that this was not a professional criminal gang, but men who had been lured into this absurd plot by their own greed. And it is now for them to stand before a judge and await a sentence that will see them all serve an awful long time in jail. On this week's Crime Desk, we have a murdering monk so vile, a hit-and-run killer finally is brought to justice, and a dangerous criminal is on the run after an incredible jail break. You may recall last week the woeful tale of an 8-year-old girl who was abducted, raped, and murdered. Her body was then dumped in a pond in a dark and lonely forest. Well, quite incredibly, this week a remarkably similar story of murder has occurred, but this time the suspect is one you would least suspect, as a 54-year-old Buddhist monk has been arrested by police in Siem Reap for allegedly raping and murdering a 3-year-old girl. That's right, she was only 3 years of age. The incident itself took place at Wat Prasat Sankhe Singh Pagoda in Siem Reap, and this murdering monk had a past, a very murky one, for he had served 3 years in prison for drug trafficking. After his release from prison in 2023, the suspect moved to Siem Reap province and he entered the monkhood. He lay dormant there. That was until last week when he struck. The girl's parents revealed that on October the 26th at about 9 a.m, the parents themselves went to work on their farm. They asked their 10-year-old daughter to take the 3-year-old twin sisters to visit a nearby temple. They could never have imagined the horror that lay in wait for them, as when the suspect spotted the 3 little girls, he invited the trio to watch a movie on his mobile phone. As they did, he went into another room inside the temple. He managed to separate one of the 3-year-olds from her 2 sisters. He then took that frail child into a back room and he savagely raped her, then killed her. When the sisters finished watching the movie, they asked the monk where had their sister gone. He said she had left and he did not know where she was. The truth was her lifeless body was concealed in that very room. The girls left and they told their mother that their sister was missing, but it was not for long, as soon after the corpse of the 3-year-old was found in a nearby rice field. On closer inspection, police officers could see that the little girl had been brutally strangled to death. And the tale was so very transparent. It was the monk who had committed this heinous of crimes. And it was only hours after the crime itself he was taken into police custody and charged with the rape and the murder of a child who was just 3 years old. And now we learn of a wanted man that has been arrested after 2 long years on the run. And I'm sure you will be exceedingly happy to hear of his arrest after you learn of his crime, as he was arrested for being one of those god-awful people that kills someone on the nation's roads and then flees the scene. Yep, this guy is a hit-and-run driver that hit a motto 2 long years ago, and he fled the scene of the accident and left his victims to die right there on the tarmac. Battambang Provincial Police stated this week that the Tamin Administrative Police Force implemented an arrest warrant on a Mr. Leng Bolin, a 31-year-old male resident of Battambang Province. He was detained for driving recklessly and causing death to others all the way back in 2022. Actually, on writing this, I just noted that he did not in fact just kill one person, he killed multiple people. So this, it can safely be said, is one in the win column for law enforcement, as this killer driver now faces many long years in jail. Now, from those going to jail to those leaving it, as a jailbreak this week has a very dangerous man on the run, and police have launched a manhunt for a Vietnamese fugitive who made an exceedingly dramatic escape from Sva Reng prison. The escape was well planned and was ruthless in its execution. The prisoner had a visitor at 4:30 p.m. He was taken to the visitor's room to meet that visitor, but it was not long into the meeting that the prisoner made his move. He waited for a guard to walk past their table, and he then leapt on that guard and wrestled the gun from his holster. The prison guard then saw the most horrifying of sights as the prisoner levelled the gun at the guard's head, and he pulled the trigger. The hammer went back on that handgun, and then it made a dull click sound as it hit the bullet, but the gun did not fire. The 24-year-old Vietnamese prisoner and his accomplice then overpowered the guard, and they fled the prison. The prisoner is to be considered highly dangerous, not only for the attempted murder of this prison official, but for the previous convictions, including drug trafficking. Now, it's at this point I should be doing the line, "Police ask you to be on the lookout for this man," and then I put a photo on the screen of the wanted man. I then follow through with the traditional saying, "Contact the police, do not approach him." Well, I suppose we could do that ending, but I think you'll see why it's not quite as valid as it usually is. But let's try it anyway. The police ask you to be on the lookout for this man. If you do see him, please do not approach him, but contact the police immediately, as he is to be considered extremely dangerous. It's also worthy of note, he's not quite as blurry as that in real life. This is our final story, and it's rather good. It has something very beautiful in it, so here goes. Well, what a mixed bag this week. Prisoners snatched by armed gang, a young child has her life snuffed out by a murdering monk, and a blurry man goes on the run. So it seems only right we conclude by going out by hunting wild animals. The more endangered they are, the better it is. And it's not just one endangered species we're going to hunt, but 108. The more we capture, the better it is. But we, dear viewer, will be using camera traps to capture our elusive prey. A recent study of the Central Cardamom Mountains has recorded 108 endangered species, says a press release this week, and 23 of those are listed as being at high risk. So high, in fact, they are registered on the red list. They are that close to extinction. The camera traps documented 65 bird species, 38 mammals, and 5 reptiles, including the D-hole, one of the last remaining predators in Cambodia. Now, I have no idea what a D-hole is, so I looked it up on the internet. It is spelt D-hole. So if you wish to look him up on the internet, be very careful as to how you type that, as Lord knows what might happen. What I found was this cheeky chappie. He's rather cute, and like the others captured on camera, he is in danger of being wiped off the face of the planet by illegal poachers. The study also captured other rare and elusive species, including the Asian elephant, the clouded leopard, the marbled cat, and the... What? Hang on. I'm not saying another word here until we see a marbled cat. How cool is that? A marbled cat. Let's take a look. And here he is, and isn't he amazing? I never knew such a thing existed, and there's me thinking he would look like this. Right, allow me to continue. Clouded leopard, marbled cat, a golden cat, sun bears, and an Asiatic bear. Now that is quite the haul. With over 95% of its forests still intact, the Cardamom Central Mountain Range remains one of Cambodia's least deforested areas, and this humane hunting expedition has brought back not only images of often extremely endangered animals, but also it has brought back hope. Hope that these animals, with the correct forestry management, can be brought back from the very edge of extinction. It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week.
And here we are at the final chapter, which of course is the weather. Now, as always, I like to show you a photo or two of what I've been doing this week just to make the weather a bit more interesting, basically. And this week I was absolutely elated because I bought this. It's a new wheel for Wilbert, my hamster. Now, I've got to explain why I'm so elated, because his current wheel, you see, is like mesh. It's made of mesh and it's got these little iron holes, you see. But Wilbert, as you can see in this photo, has no back legs. I don't know why. I think he traded them off for other things which are rather bountiful on my hamster. So there you go, Wilbert will be able to run now, so I'm really, really very pleased with that. And now we move Wilbert out the way. Move out the way, Wilbert. And here we get to the weather. And what we see is, it's back. It's thunder, it's lightning, it's rain. We had such a peaceful week, but the rainy season has decided to throw a couple of more right hooks at us. The weather is miserable across the board, but it's the temperature. It's going to be up to 33 degrees and there's going to be 60% plus humidity.
This has been the Khmer Times News. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next weekend for your weekly roundup.